guys, long time no see. I am Step from Card Advantage MTG, and I'm just here to do a quick video because the Aether Revolt pre-release is coming up this weekend. And I know there are a bunch of set reviews out there, and it's hard to listen to, watch, or consume all of them. So rather than do a full set review this time, what I wanted to do was just look at the instant speed effects, the things that you are going to have to worry about if your opponent has untapped mana on your turn. So buckle in and we'll get through them reasonably quickly. First up is Alley Evasion. If your opponent is in white and they have a single white open, you might want to think twice about slamming in with all your creatures. Single white, instant, choose one. Target creature you control gets +1/+2 until end of turn, or return target creature you control to its owner's hand. So the bounce a creature is only really going to be useful if they want to block and then replay it for an ETB ability, but +1/+2 can make a big difference in combat math, so be aware. Deadeye Harpooner, 2 and a white for a 2/2 creature. This isn't an instant speed effect, but it has a mechanic, one of the new mechanics for the set, Revolt, and just want to be aware that when you're dealing with combat, sometimes people want their stuff to die so that they can get a Revolt trigger. This Revolt trigger is when Deadeye Harpooner enters the battlefield. If a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, destroy target tapped creature an opponent controls. So, like I said, if you swing in and they either trade or take it, if they can get one of their things to die on their turn, they can take out your creature. So if you've seen this from them, or if you think they might have it, you might want to protect your big things. Although if they're threats, they're not really doing much if they just sit back, so whatever. Decommission is next. Instant, 2 and a white, destroy target artifact or enchantment. And again, the Revolt trigger. If a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, you gain 3 life. Big deal. There are a lot of artifacts, and there are a number of enchantments that are worth killing. So be aware that this is in the format. There's quite a few things that are enchantment or artifact removal, and most of them are pretty good. This one happens to be at instant speed. Def Dismissal, 3 and a white for an instant. Def Dismissal deals 3 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 target attacking or blocking creatures. Now, this is one of those things that can really change combat. It won't mean that they get to keep anything on their side of the board, but they might be able to finish off your entire team if you thought that your stuff was going to survive. Or they could just take out anything with 3 toughness. And I have to say, I've done the statistics on this set. There are a lot of things with 3 or less toughness in this set. 3 seems to be the magic number. There are some with 4 and above, but the majority of things seem to have 3 toughness or less. Next on to blue. Blue is always the one I worry about that has mana left open, and this is one of the reasons why. Disallow, 1 blue, it's a counterspell. Counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Now this is interesting because it's not just countering spells, this is also what's called a stifle effect. And we haven't seen one of these for quite a while, but it is at rare, so you probably aren't going to see many of them. The ones that are opened in sealed pools for the pre-release are probably going to get played though, so be aware. If you're using an activated ability that's going to be instrumental in your turn, this could counter it. Next is Illusionists' Stratagem. 3 and a blue. For an instant, exile up to 2 target creatures you control, then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Draw a card. So this isn't something to worry about so much as it's going to generate value for your opponent. They can assign blockers and then use this to save their blockers, activate ETB abilities, and get a free card. So, you know, 4 mana, it does a lot, but it does cost 4 mana. And this could be what they're keeping their 4 mana up for. Leave in the Dust. Another 4 mana, 3 and a blue for an instant. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Draw a card. I'm seeing draw a card a lot in this set, which I like. This one hits any non-land permanent. It bounces to hand and it stays there. So they could use this to replay an ETB creature on their side, or anything. They could use it to save their planeswalker if they're lucky enough to open one, or they could use it to tempo you and get your thing out of the way. Just be aware. Metallic Rebuke. 2 and a blue with Improvise. This is the other new mechanic for this set, and it's going to make the math a little weird, because you have to look at how many creatures, or artifact creatures, or just plain artifacts they have on their side of the field. This one is a counterspell. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3, so it's a mana leak. But if they have a single blue and a bunch of artifacts untapped, they could cast this. So be aware, if you're hitting your bomb mana, if you're hitting your 5 or your 6 drop, this could be coming your way, and it could basically ruin your whole plan. Negate is a reprint that's been in many sets. 1 and a blue for an instant counter target non-creature spell. So this hits your enchantments, it hits your planeswalkers, it hits your artifacts, it hits everything that's interesting other than creatures. Mostly counterspells that hit creatures are better, but negates, I've run a negate in my sealed pool, or in my sealed deck, in my main deck, and if you happen to have a planeswalker or be in on a decoction module plan or something like that, this is something that's likely to be boarded in against you, so be aware of that. Shielded Aether Thief, 1 and a blue for an 0/4. This is a creature, but it has flash, which means it can be played at any time you can cast an instant. So it's a surprise blocker. When Shielded Aether Thief blocks, you get an energy. Pay 3 energy and tap it to draw a card. So this is cool that you can just pay energy to draw cards, turn energy into cards, but it could make the difference between winning and losing in games that back a few sets ago, I can't think of what it was, there was a game I was in where I was racing, and I had just lethal if I swung with everything, and they flashed in a blocker and I lost because I died on the crackback. So be aware that this thing is out there. It's uncommon, and if you see it in the first game, it's likely to be to good effect. Take into Custody. Single blue, these are the ones that are really scary because they don't cost that much to leave up a single blue mana. Instant, tap target creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. This is a reason to leave back a blocker. It generally just gets played before combat to tap down your biggest attacker to save your opponent some damage, but it can be instrumental in blowout situations, so be warned. Whir of Invention is next. X blue 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 for an instant. So this is a big X spell, and it means that you need at least 4 mana to cast it, except it's got Improvise. So if your opponent has a lot of untapped artifacts, they can tap down their entire board full of artifacts to pay for 1 for each of the X. So the effect: search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Big deal. What do artifacts do? Well, somebody's going to open this with a Gear Hulk or any other big, dumb, bonkers artifact creature. And having an instant speed 6/6 can drastically change combat math. So be aware of this. It is a rare, and so are the Gear Hulks, and so are most of the things that you'd want to fetch with it, although, what is it, the Automaton is, I think, an uncommon, so, or it might actually be a common. So there are things that will get you with this. Just be aware. On to black. Cruel Finale. 2 and a black for an instant at common. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Scry 1. You remember how I said 3 was the magic toughness? Well, there are a lot of things that die from -2. There are still a bunch of servos and whatnot, but there are a whole lot of real creatures that are 3/1s and 2/2s and 3/2s in this format, and this will get a lot of them. Black has some pretty serious removal going on, as we're about to see. Fatal Push is another one. A single black. A single black mana is enough to destroy target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less. So this is all of your bears. This is some rares. And if Revolt is triggered, destroy that creature if it has converted mana cost 4 or less, which is most of your good mid-game stuff. This will, even at the base level, take out... I have forgotten the name of the damn 2/2 that gets bigger. It'll take out rhinos, it'll take out all sorts of things that, for 1 black mana, it's pretty good. Perilous Predicament. 4 and a black for an instant. So that's a lot of mana to leave open. If your opponent passes with 5 mana open, you should definitely be aware. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact creature and a non-artifact creature. So it's a 2 for 1, unless you've got a servo. Even still, those are probably creatures that you wanted, so this is definitely something to be aware of. Renegade's Getaway. 2 and a black for an instant. Target permanent gains indestructible until end of turn. Create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. So this is good in 2 ways. It's your typical black combat trick where you regenerate the creature or it gains indestructible and hopefully wins combat because it creates a 1/1, so you can stack block or block 2 separate things, and that will change combat math. Definitely something to be aware of. On to red. Hungry Flames. 2 in a red. Instant. Hungry Flames deals 3 damage to target creature and 2 damage to target player. This is almost Chandra's Outrage, which at 4 mana dealt 4 and 2, but I think it's actually a little better here, because 3 damage, like I said, is the magic number, and 3 mana for 5 damage is just kind of better than 4 mana for 6 damage, spread out, and the way it was spread out. So again, 3 mana open should be suspicious, and if they're in black or red, there are a lot of things that just straight up kill your stuff. Invigorated Rampage. 1 and a red for an instant. Here's another choose. Target creature gets +4/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. Or 2 target creatures get +2/+0 and gain trample. So either one thing gets real big, or 2 things get a little bigger. This isn't going to save your opponent's creatures if they attack in and are blocked, but it is going to mean that the damage gets through to you, which might be the difference between living and dying. At 2 mana, this is a trick that we're going to see at least at the pre-release. Precise Strike, 1 red mana. This is another one we're probably going to see at the pre-release. Whether we should or not is another question. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. I say whether we should or not because combat tricks like this, again, don't save your creature, or this one kind of does because it gives first strike. So the creature will win combat, but it's not getting extra damage through, and it's a one-off, and it's not like it's buffing it way up. It's no giant growth. But it's good enough that it'll get you if you're not looking for it. This is absolutely my favorite card on this list, just because I'm old school and I have nostalgia. Shock is single red. Shock deals 2 damage to target creature or player. People have called this the fixed lightning bolt. I kind of think of lightning strike as the fixed lightning bolt. I think shock has a slightly different role. I always feel a little bad about lightning bolting something turn 1, even though I shouldn't. I never feel bad about turn 1 shock to a creature. It tempos really well. It scales really well. Like I said, there are still a bunch of creatures with toughness 2 in the format. So for 1 mana, this is going to be... most of these that get open will get played. On to green. Heroic Intervention. 1 in a green for an instant. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Yep, this is a Johnny in fine form. He saves your stuff, but doesn't really do that much else. Hexproof and indestructible means, of course, that trades are suddenly not trades, so this can actually get some utility, but it's not great. But it is something to be aware of if you think you're going to make a bunch of trades and your opponent is in green. Highspire Infusion. 1 in a green for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 and +3/+3, excuse me, until end of turn, and you get 2 energy. So this is the giant growth of the set. It's fine. It's definitely something to be aware of. It's definitely something that is going to come up if you think you're going to win combat against a green creature. So yeah, 2 mana. Be aware. Lifecraft Awakening. X and a green for an instant. Put X +1/+1 counters on target artifact you control. If it isn't a creature or vehicle, it becomes a 0/0 construct artifact creature. So, interestingly, this does not activate vehicles. You can put +1/+1 counters on the vehicle and then just have it sit there and still have to be crewed, which is, I think, an interesting design choice. But on the other hand, if there's a oh, I can't remember the name of the new cycle of little trinkets. But if it's a puzzle knot or one of the new things that's just sitting there on the battlefield, not a creature, suddenly there's another creature. So this is another thing that will affect combat math. And it's going to be a vanilla creature, a just slightly less than vanilla creature. So a 2/2 for 3 or a 3/3 for 4. Or this could just be a Giant's Growth that scales on one of their things that's already a creature. Lifecrafter's Gift. 3 and a green for an instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, then put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. So at the very least, this is give something permanently +2/+2. If you're in the Fabricate or a deck that puts a lot of counters on things, this could be a massive blowout. It's definitely something that you should look for if your opponent is in green and passes with 4 mana open. As we've established, anything more than 1 or 2 mana should be suspicious. Any mana open from blue should be suspicious, but this could just be target creature gets +2/+2, which is fine. It could be all creatures get +1/+1 forever. Which is definitely something to be worried about. Natural Obsolescence is the naturalize of the set. 1 and a green for an instant. Put target artifact on the bottom of its owner's library. This is actually better in some ways than just outright destroy it. Putting it into the graveyard means that it can be brought back by some of the artifacts in the set. This just puts it on the bottom of its owner's library, where it's most likely out of the game for the remainder in Limited. I wouldn't worry about this in main deck, but if you have a strong artifact strategy, you can bet that your opponent's going to sideboard this in. Last one I wanted to talk about was Paradox Engine. This is not an instant speed ability, but it's something that you should be aware of, because sometimes you just look at your opponent's creatures and anything else on the board doesn't matter at the moment. So Paradox Engine for 5 mana, legendary artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, untap all non-land permanents you control. This could be very bad if you forget about it and your opponent has it, because they cast anything that's an instant, suddenly they have a bunch of blockers. I don't think most people are going to forget about it if it's sitting right there on the field, but hey, we all make mistakes, and I've done it before, so yeah, that's something to be aware of. Thank you for checking out this short little video about Aether Revolt pre-release prep. We will be back in some manner for a full set review for Amonkhet, and we hope to be uploading other videos to this channel soon. I will be going to the pre-release both days, both Saturday and Sunday, and I will be doing pre-release reports after I get home from each event. So I'll either upload an article to the blog or a video to this channel for you to check out. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you this weekend.